It proves that the great bands, not just Queen, are far more than just the sum of their parts. So it's a piano intro, very, very strong vocal line. And, you know, there's not much guitar on it. I mean, live, there was chick, chick, that's what it was. The only guitar on it, really, is little flashes sort of underpinning the whole melody. Apart from the solo, of course, which mirrors the melody, which is a very strong melody indeed. So he actually didn't use this amplifier, he used a little one that his bass player made called the Deaky amp, which you may or may not be aware of, to get that sort of sound. But on the main solo, he's using a Vox. On the triple tracked harmony bit, he's using that, and is also using his way of using his finger like that. I don't know if we can show you that. It's sort of, what it does, if you play up the neck here, it's a very nice full sound, which is the complete opposite of using that. So what he would do, he'd have all three pickups on here, and it was that like that. I can't play it well. That sort of thing, which is also at the very, very end of the Bohemian Rhapsody song rather than solo.
They still had the very big, heavy sound, but they were starting to open up their horizons. They were starting to bring in elements of vaudeville, elements of Noel Coward, elements, if you wanted, a Bonzo Dog Band in a strange sort of way. They were starting to experiment with the way they perceived music, or rather allowing the audience to see the way they perceived music. Killer Queen was the big single on the album, and if you listen to Killer Queen, which is a wonderful song, it's got so many of the hallmarks of what made Sheer Heart Attack a step forward. The vocal harmonies are there, but sometimes it's barbershop quartet. Sometimes what you're listening to is Hollywood musical in a strange way with that song. Still got the heaviness in there, but what they did with Killer Queen was say, right, in a way, what we're going to do is represent where we're going musically in so many different directions and put the whole potpourri into one track. And that track, Killer Queen.
Killer Queen is the song where they start bringing in these other elements. They created this hybrid of glam rock and heavy rock. I think with Killer Queen, that's where something else comes in. And it's almost a sort of Victorian music hall quality. I mean, you know, imagine if they had dry ice in the days of music hall, you might end up with something like Queen. And I think, you know, it was round about then that Freddie said that he was more Liza Minnelli than Robert Plant.
Sheer Heart Attack was released on November the 8th, 1974, and peaked at #2 in the album chart.
I think as an album, Sheer Heart Attack saw Queen opening up phase 2 of their career, which really came to fruition with Night at the Opera and Day at the Races. This was a band showing their roots, showing their heaviness, but also prepared to try different things. And the experimentation that came through on that album was fascinating.
Nobody else was doing music like that, to be fair to all the other bands of the 70s. They were all rather serious and po-faced. There was an awful lot of humour in Queen's work. Daring cheek, really. You can imagine them spending hours laughing in the studio while they were working out these intricate harmonies and doing things that nobody had done before. So I can imagine they had an awful lot of fun down at Trident Studios in Soho, London, where it all took place.
Sheer Heart Attack is a move towards the classic Queen image, which is, yes, this is still a rock group and a very good one, but it has this astonishing frontman who isn't a soloist. He's in the group and he's part of the group, but it gives the group something that no other rock group has, and this is what they needed to set themselves apart from Floyd and Zeppelin, Sabbath and Purple, or the Beatles, to have this extraordinary androgynous frontman with the incredible voice.
He's assembled a lifestyle that resembles few others. So far, there are no signs of Freddie Mercury succumbing to conservatism.
Freddie Mercury is pivotal really to the success of Queen. Without him, they wouldn't have been a success. He really was the kind of the emotional engine, really, of the band. He was the heartbeat of the group. It was his anger, his sense of frustration, his love of life, and all the sort of aspects of his personality, larger-than-life personality, reflected in all these extraordinary songs that he wrote. Quite daring and imaginative songs, full of wit and humour. As a musician as well, a great pianist, a remarkable singer with a huge range. If you listen to him now, the fact that he could sing a ballad and then roar out an operatic aria, how many blues singers can do that? Not too many, I don't think.
I think without Freddie Mercury, Queen probably would today be regarded in the same way that we look back at, I don't know, King Crimson or somebody like that. I think if Brian May had been the dominant force in that group, as opposed to just one dominant force, they'd have stayed stuck in a kind of riff-oriented heavy rock, and it would have run its course fairly swiftly. And then when punk came along, that probably would have just about finished them off. So I think their success has to be, with all due respect to Brian May, who was a fine guitarist and is a fine musician, but without Freddie Mercury, I don't think we would remember Queen at all.
With the growing confidence that Mercury displayed on Sheer Heart Attack, a new songwriting dynamic developed between Freddie and Brian, a dynamic that lifted the band beyond the formal rock constraints of many of their contemporaries, without ignoring the basis of their sound.
If you're a songwriter and you use the guitar as your main songwriting tool, you're going to write in maybe 4 keys. So you're going to be A, E, D, G, and if you're particularly hard, in a B. Now the reason for that is that in those sort of keys there are lots of open strings that you can use. But with Fred, when he's composing, he'll often use non-guitar friendly keys. And it won't be a conscious, well, I assume it wouldn't have been a conscious thing, it'll be easy for him to play. And just as guitar players will